As we honor Black History Month, we uplift Dr. Dorothy I. Height, widely known as the godmother of the civil rights movement. Dr. Height wasn't just present, she was a principal architect behind the scenes, advancing civil rights, women's leadership, education, and family well being for decades. She served as the national president of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, shaping policy, mobilizing communities, and ensuring Black women's voices were never sidelined in the fight for justice. Her legacy reminds us that lasting change is built through vision, strategy, and care for the whole community, mind, body, and spirit. Good morning, and welcome to Rise and Thrive with Dr. J. Nicole, where we are rising in faith and thriving in purpose. Today's episode, I am joined by the ultra talented Christopher Cross, Dr. Christopher Cross. And he's going to break down some high level strategies from science, engineering, and business and help us understand how it applies to real life and relationships. And his core message is quite simple. It's not that people are broken as much as they just lack strategy, and particularly in love. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. Been looking forward to this. So, let's get into it.
Okay, but before we dive right in, tell the people a little bit about you.
So, I'm Dr. Christopher Cross. My background is in a lot of sciences, but honestly, I think the best identity for me is as a multidisciplinary strategist. I've
Mm,
really kind of pulled together a lot of my learnings across so many different disciplines and engineering and science and business to really think through how do I apply this in my everyday life when I'm not in a traditional career path. And I feel like I have cracked the code in a few different ways that I'm happy to share today in the context of our conversation.
yes, I'm already excited. So we're taking business engineering and which one am I missing? Business engineering, neuroscience, what?
Science,
All the
yeah,
all the
all of it.
science, all the science, and breaking it down. And so I had the honor of being in school at Howard University with Dr. Cross. Is how remember our initial meeting, but I know it was the cabin trip, the ski trip that really
Yes,
solidified our connection. We had a solid group of folks that went on that ski trip that year up to the Poconos. You
epic.
coordinated that year too.
I think I did. I think I did. I was one of the
Yeah.
coordinators. I was one of the GSA reps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that sealed the deal. And then I remember supporting you when you were running for graduate trustee and secured it.
We got it. We
Yes.
got it. I
I
remember
love
the
yeah.
T-shirts. Remember I had the T-shirts
Yes.
made and, like, there's a picture of us, like, it's like the 3 of us from the back.
My gosh. Me, you, and Capricia, wasn't it?
Yes! I love that
Not
photo.
like all the memories are coming back. And who knew? Like, that's well over a decade ago. Can you believe that?
Look, time is crazy. Like, it's so interesting. But, I mean, it's so good, though, at the same time, you know?
It is. Well, thank you for allowing me to go down memory lane and let's get into it for what the people really came for today. So, when you say you've cracked the code, what do you really mean?
So it's come about because I'm the founder of a company called the Strategy Lab. So it's the dash strategy dash lab.com. And if you go to there, you can see on the about page, it says really like one dimension, like it says like one method, every dimension. And
Mm,
so the core sort of principle is a framework that I call like biopsychosocial methodology. So you're
giving social work.
it's combining, biology, sociology, and psychology. And clearly, which is one of the reasons we've, I think, stayed connected. I think a lot of times for me, my early career was in biomedical engineering, neuroscience, right? And population genetics. And then I got exposure to policy, science policy in particular. And then started my own consulting firm, around like health equity, which was kind of blending those things. But then as a person, right, as a human being outside of the rat race, there was a
Right.
lot of development I still needed to do as it related to how who am I to me when I'm not these identifiers as the things that I do? You know, who am I
Mm,
to me and how do I relate to others? And that's really, I think, for me, the newest iteration is that psychology, is that identity understanding of who I am and how it intersects with those other two biological and sociological spaces. So when I talk about cracking the code, it's around pulling elements from all of those and trying to achieve alignment across whether it is in work, whether it is, even in love and relationships.
that's so good. Really and truly, we do biopsychosocial assessments.
Boom.
Yep. So that's why I was like, okay. Yeah. And it's great because you have to do the assessment and you have to look at all of those things. Why then do you think, well, let me slow down. I love how you recognize through your own experience. And I love how lived experience connects to purpose and like gifts and things that are in us because we all have a unique way of seeing the world, our own experiences, even though we have the same functions, right, that are happening in our mind, bodies, and spirits, it's still just like a very unique experience all at the same time. So I love that you were able to start with self and say, hey, I got some work to do. And then in figuring it out, not keeping it to yourself, you said,
Mhm.
let me make this available to the people and use it to help the people. So I always admire that when people can take their personal journey and turn it into something purposeful.
I mean, that's what we're trying to do, right? It's the best we can. And I think that's that. I think why we both have these terminal degrees, there's a core aspect that was driving us that was around, I want to learn this so I can translate what I'm learning to improve the communities that I'm a part of. And ultimately, better the environments that I have to operate within. So I
Yeah.
think that's where it comes from.
Yeah, I love that. So, speaking of, right, why do people, and then I also want to get into high functioning people, intelligent people, why do they sometimes feel stuck or misaligned?
You know, so why do intelligent people feel stuck or misaligned? I think it's such a great question because one, we're sort of bidding this to intelligent people. So the first thing is like, what is intelligence and who is considered an intelligent person? By sort of general scientific standards, all conscious human beings are considered intelligent, right? So I think what we mean in this context is probably people who process the world faster, you know, and sort of traditionally can articulate certain things in a way that's considered more quote unquote educated. And I think if
I
that's the
like that.
group where we're categorizing, why do they experience misalignment? I think it's the same reason a lot of us do, whether we're in that intelligent group or not. It's really this lack of grounding across the multi dimensions that we are as beings. I think it really is sort of this. A lot of times people have their core identity is linked to how they present phenotypically, physically. They see themselves as like, oh, I'm a man, I'm a woman, I'm a black person, I'm a white person, I'm an Asian person. And your core being isn't any of those things, right? In a lot of ways, like you are a formless spark that is now inhabiting this vessel that looks a certain way, that has this interesting genetic patterning to it. And I think misalignment occurs when you're trying to kind of force things that don't make sense to these identities you created for yourself. And I think when you kind of loosen those up a little bit, you find a little sense of like, there's there's this weird gray space that I'm in, and I feel actually more comfortable here without all of the labels and different things. And then you're like, what does that version of me enjoy? What does that version of me, what does a stress free moment look like for that individual? And then I think that becomes sort of the core anchoring sort of feeling that you can now like, now I have like a compass for like when I feel good. And then figuring out over here, Northwest, this feels better. South, something don't feel right over here. So I think a lot of us don't have that honed compass to start to follow and feel where we feel the most aligned.
That's so good. And what I'm also hearing in this is that it requires you to live. So it's not so much maybe that people are misaligned as much as they're evolving and
Mm,
that prior version of themselves they are outgrowing. And so this is that battle, that push pull. Do I stay where I am or do I answer this call to go higher? That thing that's in you, right? Because we have choices.
yeah, we
We
do.
have choices and there are a lot of people who don't choose to go forward. They choose to stay where they are
So I'm
for
so
whatever their reasons are.
to your point, the lived experience is like a data set, right? I'm
Mhm.
so excited. I'm
Mhm.
turning 40 this year, and my that's my word of the year.
Heavy.
But when I break it down, it's really like 2020 gets you to 40, right?
Come on.
So think about the first 20 years of your life. That's what you're
Mhm.
indoctrinated into. You're born into it. You are on a conveyor belt. A lot of the dreams and goals you had have been like imbued on you. Maybe it's you, maybe it's not you. And then the next 20 years of your life, you're kind of like re-exploring this, rediscovering like who you are. And I think when you've had enough time over that second 20, now you got patterns you can look back on. Now I can reflect on the recent 20 or the first 20. When did I like things? So you start to get enough time, right? Enough lived experience to then identify patterns that then can help you make decisions.
Yes, that's so good, and when I work with clients, I talk a lot about our programming, but when you just said that excuse me, when you just said the, conveyor belt, I was like, "Yes, it's our factory settings is another name for programming, right? The factory settings, and then we don't know to ask questions, and then like you said, we spend that time figuring out what do we like from the factory settings? What do we like to tweak? Like one of the first things I do when I get into a rental car or a new car for the first time, I go adjust the sound. I don't
Yeah.
like my treble really high. I like my treble in the middle and I want my bass all the way up.
Hey, we love them bass.
And exactly. And so to me, that's like exactly what you're saying. Like you tweak and you figure out what you do and what you don't. But I didn't do that in every car I got into. It took some time before I figured out I don't like how this sounds. Oh, there's other settings, right? But I had to get my own car to do that in lived experiences. So this is good. So what do you think is the difference between effort and strategy when these are applied to personal
Mm.
growth?
Ooh, this is perfect. So when you were talking about changing the dials, I think that's a perfect metaphor for modulation versus manipulation. And as
Ooh,
you think about strategy and effort, it's the same thing. Effort to me is a little more manipulation. Strategy is modulation. Same way you're turning those dials around like, "Oh, I kinda want this a little slightly this way." You're not rebuilding the whole machine, you're not moving all this, you're just doing these little tweaks. That is the embodiment of strategy versus effort. And, you're using the systems that are already there, right? You're using your experience, and then you're just doing these tweaks to kinda make it you feel aligned to the system. And I think, with effort, there is that a lot of time I mean, and inevitably, you have to have put in traditional sense of effort, right?
yeah.
There's things you're gonna have to do that require, that ATP activation and energy output, right? You're gonna be tired from doing something. But I think that a lot of times when people think about effort in this sense, it's just like arduous, right? It's like I'm doing this work, I'm doing the things I was told to do, but I'm not necessarily getting the outcomes, the promised outcomes, the expectations that I was told I would get by putting in this effort. And so the shift with strategy is before I put in a lot of effort, let me understand, is there a framework that I can use? Is there information I need before I start putting in that muscle, right? That effort to make sure when I do that, at least as much as I can, will that then get me the expected outcomes? So it's really just kind of like taking a breath. Let me really think through this. Let me not just go right in. Let me see the landscape. Let me understand, are there best practices? Are there people I can talk to? How do I come up with my own game plan first and then work the plan? Because a lot of times when you do that, you don't have to put in as much effort. And then when you do put it in, you have a higher probability of getting the expected outcomes.
Yeah, and so many people, they just think, "I have to do," right? I can't just sit here and do anything. I think that what do you think that is on the inside of people that prevents them from stopping to take that beat, to develop a strategy before they just start moving?
I think there's a lot, but first comes to mind is cultural. Culture plays such a big role. You know, I've been fortunate to travel internationally several times now and spend like months, abroad. And I think, and I have a very diverse set of friends stateside. That's one of the benefits I would say of going to college and being a part of different groups. You get exposed to a lot of different people, a lot of ways people think. And then being at Howard, you even get exposed to the diaspora within the community that looks like you. You like, oh, people also don't think the same, right? So I think when you do that, you're like, oh, this person has a different culture, right? And there's subcultures within cultures. But I
Yes.
think in the Western modern world that we live in America, our culture is a do culture, right? It's a very like, are you being productive, right? That's part of our day to day is like, were you productive today? And that's an evaluation on like value in a lot of ways. And so we're like, are you productive? What did you do today? It's about do. And then with other cultures, it's not about that to the degree, right? Are you rested? Are you prioritizing things like, the way that governments are structured help inform even the culture of the society, right? Are there mandated nap? How is the work week scheduled? Is there leave for women? Like, is there leave for new parents? Like how much is that leave? That directly influences this sort of I need to do. And I think, as we know in the States, like we have not some of the most greatest time when you even have a child, with 12 weeks, and there's other countries where it's even much more. So I think it's a cultural phenomenon that we have to address.
Yeah, that's so good. And for so many people, their worth is tied to their output, and they don't understand that they are enough as is. We're taught performance very early,
Very
very
early.
early. Performance and productivity. Absolutely. Yeah. So when you think about this from like a systems perspective, why does just be yourself often fail people?
Well, I think people don't really know what that means, right? It's like be
Okay.
myself. Like what does that mean? And I think when people even request that, it's like, what is that? Is this a work context? Is this a romantic context? Is this, you know, what do we mean by that? And I think that it's such a loaded question in so many ways.
Yeah.
And I think it's like no wonder people can't quote unquote be themselves because one, people don't even know what they're asking for. And two, like people don't know what that is.
Hmm.
So I mean, yeah. What when you say it, what do you think it means? Like I feel like we'll get
Yeah.
into it, but it's like,
Yeah.
let's try to categorize it.
So I love where you're going with this, like being yourself and just thinking about the flow of the conversation, right? Some people don't know yet because they're still operating under the factory settings. and they've not had the time, the lived experience to really explore, to figure out who they are aside from this is what I'm supposed to do, this is what's expected of me.
Mm,
And a lot of times we have values, perspectives on things that we've not heard in our ecosystem, in our families, this thing that you're just like different, right? So then, like, what do you do with that when conformity is kind of a requirement to be in the community that you're in, whether it's family, the environment, the schools you go to, all those things early on when we're still operating in our factory setting. So a lot of times people don't know, but what we can also tell, I think, as humans, is when someone is being inauthentic, when it doesn't feel genuine. And so I think we're trying to give people when we say just be yourself, depending on the context or when I've done it, I've wanted to give people the freedom to just be at ease, to take off the mask, to not perform and be
mm.
present is what I think of when I say just be yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that to your point, there's a few things I wanna say on the conveyor belt continuation. Like, as I talked about 2020, some people don't get that break between the proverbial 20 breaks, right? Then you got married, then you have kids, and you have this, like, the conveyor belt continues. So you haven't had the break to then reflect. Right? So, I think with folks that are continuously on the conveyor belt, they don't have a chance to really get the opportunity to reflect because to be yourself requires integration. It
Yeah.
requires introspection. You cannot get to knowing who you are without the time of pause and identifying patterns and then executing autonomy to decide which of these patterns do I subscribe to? And then, even in addition to your own life, there's the existential choices around society and social contracts. Social contracts are invisible, agreements we're all making to be a part of a society, right? And a lot of times we sign these contracts and nobody knows what they've signed. I think part of being who you are or deciding to be who yourself is understanding which social contracts are you gonna keep valid. Because there's a lot of them that you wanna just veto. And I think picking and
Yes.
choosing the vetoing, understanding the patterns, that's all linked to integration. And I think when you have that, you can start to have quote unquote presence because presence is presenting from sort of a deeper inner self of who you are. And then that can translate or telegraph to others as authentic, right? As yourself.
Mhm.
And sometimes when you are yourself, it's not received well. So, I mean, there's that other component too. So, I think to you answering your question, a lot of reasons people aren't themselves because one, it's hard, right? You have to have time. There's certain conditions that need to be met that are hard to meet. And then the other part is even when people have experienced that, I think we can think of artists in a lot of ways. I think artists, it's demanded of their culture to be present and to be authentic, to be raw, and to go into those hard emotional places and exhibit your talent. And I think that a lot of us are not brave to even do a lot of that work, let alone how it will be received once we are that.
Oh, that was so good. So what I even heard in that, I love a good metaphor and I will pick it up and work it, okay? So you were talking about the conveyor belt of all the different things that change, right? And so I was just like, it's a revolving identity, not necessarily evolving, because evolving that requires, like you're saying, like the integration and all of those things. So, like, the revolving is happening. It's like the system, the machine that you're in, and you need that time. I love that you're stressing time. So, in addition for time with like lived experiences to learn things, having time by yourself where it's just you.
Mhm.
And rarely do we take those, or when we do, it feels like it's a breakdown, or it feels like it was a breakup, or it was, oh, I lost that job, or
Mhm.
where it feels like there was a loss. Something negative happened when really and truly it's an opportunity
Yes.
to sit with self. And I remember the first time I had one of those experiences, it was my first year in grad school, my first master's degree. And this was the most time I had ever spent by myself. It was my first time living alone.
Mm,
Always, I wasn't the oldest, you know, but then and I rarely, yeah, yeah, I really didn't have much time alone as I'm thinking about it. And then college, I always had
yeah.
roommates. So now I'm in an apartment by myself. I'm in a new city. So I know people, but it's not the same way as in college. You get bored, you just go down the hall and knock on somebody's door. I had to learn to spend time with myself, and I did start having some of those existential conversations, but I was in the second 20, right?
Yeah.
And now I'm collecting data and, looking at the factory setting and who I am and trying to like find that the balance or just like the word is escaping me, but just like trying to figure out what's really me versus what I was told.
Yeah.
And then again, now it was on the other side of my second
Huh?
40, I mean, my second 20,
Uh-uh.
but where I had to really sit, it was like everything. It was everything, and it came with divorce, right? And so
Yeah.
that can seem very painful, but man, when I tell you that process is the best thing that ever happened to me because it forced me to look at myself,
Mhm.
the lack of strategy I had, my factory settings that contributed to it and how it aligned and what I did and did not do and taking accountability for what my role is. So
Yeah.
like while generally we look at situations and say there's a villain, right? But sometimes
Yeah.
we can be our own villain, but it's not as obvious because
Exactly.
it's those subtle things, those yeses when we really meant to say no, those small acts of self sabotage, those small
Mm.
acts of self sacrifice. And we move further from our true self every time we do that. When we are not real with ourselves and how we're often motivated by fear
Oh,
to
yeah.
be accepted, to be in relationship with people, we seek validation and acceptance. I mean, which makes sense because we were built for community. And to what you have is really for me. What I have is for you. It's for us. And a lot of us keep it to ourselves. And sometimes we can be in situations in relationships, jobs, and whatnot that take us away from doing what comes organic to us,
Yeah.
like that thing that's inside of us. And having this time to sit with myself and really figure out things and really who I am, and not just being nice to be named nice and going along to get along and being authentic. I shed a lot of relationships. I shed multiple versions of myself. And when you step into that, you find out who your people really are, who can really deal with you when you're not trying to be liked, when you're not dimming, when you're really unapologetically yourself. And I don't mean that in the ways that some people do it when they're unhinged, they're rude, they're wild. You know what I mean? They don't have discipline. I don't mean it in that way, but just like really being and being okay standing in that.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I mean, you made so many good points. I think that the time, like you said, spending by yourself,
Hmm.
and then, of course, relationships and like a divorce, and then like owning your parts, their parts, understanding that, then rediscovering yourself. In a lot of ways, I feel like I've gone through the same thing. I, my sort of, I would say, driver to spend time with myself came from understanding my own parents, right? So I'm the youngest
Okay.
of in a blended family. There's 9 of us, and
Oh,
I'm the
wow. I didn't know your
youngest.
family was that big.
My dad is gonna be 90 this year. So he was 50 when I was born. So he as I love him he has never been alone,
This
right?
wait, this explains so much about your style and why you are always so put together, like classic man. Like, I get it.
Well,
Okay.
look, so I appreciate it. But yeah, he was got married essentially as like 17, 18, in the first 20, right?
Yeah.
And I had a family. I ended up, going to the Air Force, enlisting in the Air Force to take care of his family and had 5 children. So like his adolescence was really extended. And then as you know, he got divorced and then remarried, with my mom, and then, they had kids, and then I came, and then they got divorced, and he was not good at being alone. He had never spent time alone. Even to this day, like he's lived with me and with my, then husband at the time, with other
Did
family
he have a lot of
members.
siblings?
He did. He did. He
Okay.
also had like eight siblings or
Uh-huh.
so. And so he ended up so that's our whole story. But I was like, I don't want this was part of the cracking the code is identifying patterns
Yeah.
across whether you're connected to these patterns or not. But when you see a pattern and you don't like the outcome that they've had from that, it's an opportunity for you to be like, let me do something different.
Yes.
And so when I understood that with him as the man that I most admire and look up to, who has been my biggest champion in lots of ways. How do I deviate to have a potentially better outcome, right? And when I was in college, I was sort of dating a lot, so I was not really ever alone either in relationships. But then I got to a point where I was like, I need to be by myself. Like I need to crack this pattern, this, familial pattern that had been ingrained into me because I want a different result. And then when I started to be like, "Oh, I can be by myself," then I felt comfortable sort of like re-engaging in things that I liked. Because I do like romance, I do like partnership. And then even getting into a marriage and then divorcing, that was its own just lessons in so many ways. And to your
So
point, like
many
I
ways.
learned like how I was not the best partner to him, right? But still knowing this isn't a partnership I wanna stay in, right? And then being on post that side, you're like and then if there were like, for us, like, there was a stepdaughter, through that relationship, and so, like, getting the opportunity to become a parent through that.
Yeah.
Also, you learn so much. You're projecting a lot of the way you were raised unintentionally onto this, and then you get to question it, and you're like, "Is this the best thing?" And so a lot of those other experiences kind of also bring to light this sort of a mirror. A lot of these are such mirroring experiences where you're like, "Hey, this is an opportunity to see yourself, and do we wanna tweak this? Do we like this look? Like, do we wanna
Yeah.
change this up?" You know? And for me, the answer was yes. It was like, I wanna change this up. Like, I don't want to continue doing things the way that I've done them. Like, I want to have new experiences. I want to let that part, like you were saying, inside of us, right? Explore and like have new experiences to then be like, what were these things that I was afraid of? Now maybe I should try those. Maybe I should travel, by myself or go to a movie or do things and make new friendships with somebody who's not like me, but also be clear about trying to find grounding and try some new things and see, how that inner part of you aligns to it.
That's so good. And just really enjoying your own company. People, I'll say media and even family, society as a whole, makes it seem like doing things on your own is the worst thing you could possibly do. Like going to dinner. I can't remember where I first saw it in like a sitcom. Like that was one of the most sad things ever. Party of one.
Right. Like you
Sometimes
are a failure. You
exactly.
have just You're not worth anything if you have to go to dinner by yourself. Like, what does this say about you? You're a social
Exactly.
pariah. Like,
It was just
crazy. It's wild.
and and this is how people end up settling and they're in misaligned relationships, jobs. They make choices that are they're less than safe. right? And what I mean less than safe is it's not unsafe as much as it's predictable. It's not
Mm,
gonna promote growth. It's
no.
not. You and some for some people that is needed, right? Because we have different experiences. I think that could lend itself to a person choosing those things that are predictable, to have some of that. But you're the only person that's gonna be with you your entire life. You have to enjoy that and do
I thought you
things
should say
you
that one
want
more
to
time.
enjoy.
Like, say that
Yes.
again because it's real. Like, say it again, please.
You are the only person that is going to be with you your entire life. So you have to learn to enjoy being in your own presence, your own company. And the number of people who don't do things that they really want to do because no one will do it with them, if we really survey people, it's high. I'm just like thinking
Mhm.
socially, people that I know, like who they feel like they have to have someone. If you want to go, go do it. Like, just do it. You don't need anybody to give you permission.
And a lot of times there's like an adventure, right? Like
Yes.
that's what I feel like I've noticed, in these more recent years is like a lot of times, like even when things are hard, right? Like because they or knows, like choosing your own path to like exhibit autonomy in a lot of ways does require a community that supports you and gives you the space to do that. And I really do want to underscore that because it's easy in retrospect to be like, I'm gonna spend time by myself, da 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 da. But it's important to have a support system that can anchor you with the people
Yes.
you can talk to that are not gonna judge you, that are gonna love you unconditionally. And I think that doesn't for me, I feel like it didn't come through biological family,
Right.
like came with conditions. And which is just is what it is. I think that you can find that though in like real friendships. And I think that's what I have been, I think, the most fortunate is finding that in real friendships to like hold me down when shit has been crazy. And then not judging me and allowing me the time to be free and explore and share crazy stories but still kind of ground me to be like, all right, like you need that balance. And I think when you have that, you can explore, you can do these things. And I think finding those chosen family members is just the game changer.
Yeah.
It really, really is, where you can go by yourself and then you're good and you come home, you can talk to them about it or not. Like it's just, you just have that sort of like, this is my anchor. And I will say, it's not a magic thing. You're making a choice to be each other's anchors. As much as they're your anchor, you are an anchor for them, right? It's a reciprocal relationship. You are anchoring each other into this reality and deciding to be friends for the long haul.
Mm. And I don't think enough people apply enough intentionality and understanding that anchor and what that means. Yeah.
When things are tough for you, I'm making time for you. Things are tough for me, you're making time for me. If you got resources to share, you're sharing them. I have resources, I'm sharing them. We are anchoring each other into reality. And I know we didn't go this is leaning in that direction, but I think it's real because we're talking about life and we're talking about living, which inevitably means we're talking about dying, right? They're
Yeah.
all
Because it starts
connected.
at the beginning.
And so, I had a friend die by suicide a couple years back who was one of my
Sorry.
anchors. And I think
Okay.
when you lose one of those, it
Yeah.
loosens your grip on reality, and that could be a family member, right? It could be, a friend, it could be
Mm-hmm.
whoever. And for me, that was one of the first times I really experienced grief. And as you know, grief is a thing that continues. Like it's not just gone. You just learn
It
how to now
shifts.
manage it. And I think that's also part of getting older. Like inevitably people will pass away, but when that happens in certain ways, it jars your connection to reality. And then if you don't have a sense of grounding of who you are, it then brings to mind all the elevators, all of the escalator activity, the preset faults. You're like, why did I do any of this when they could just be gone tomorrow? Or the person I thought was strong, they had it all together. And then this happened. So the way to manage even a lot of that and be is to decide to be an anchor and to be someone that someone can depend on and hoping and that they're going to be that for you too.
Yeah.
Because we do need each other to then explore and have this lived experience that we ultimately enjoy. There's a lot in there, I know.
It is. And my brain is like, yep, yeah. I'd be interested maybe on another episode to talk about grief in a different way because that's something that everyone deals with, and a lot of people don't touch that topic. And it's something none of us can escape.
No.
I'm so sorry to hear about your loss, and you're absolutely right. These are the things that you don't experience till you experience. And I'll say, if you're lucky, you don't experience grief until you're an adult. But there are some people who loss and grief before them shaped their lives, right? Like it definitely had an impact on my life. But like I said, we could talk about that
Okay.
different, a different episode. But this is so rich.
I
It's so
mean,
good.
look, we gonna have real talk. We're gonna have real talk because when you talk about like being yourself, when you talk about alignment, when you talk about vetoing social contracts, this is
Yes,
deep work.
it is.
It's deep work and time is a key piece, support is a key piece, and I will say that the benefits to doing the hard work, I think is anchoring back to the phrase you repeated. You are the steward of yourself, right? And for me, it's like, wouldn't it be sad to get to the end of life and
Mm,
I didn't take care of myself when I could? It's different if you don't have the capabilities and different things, but if you can, you know, take some downtime. If you can, be like, you know what? I want to go do this little thing by myself. I feel like yourself, the vessel you're in, deserves a fun journey,
yes.
right? Like, don't you
Yep.
to take yourself on a good time? Like, you're the only
Yeah.
self that you have.
Yeah. And I talk to people about really just doing what makes you feel good and how we're doing this for the first time. Like, you and I know each other. We've had conversations, but this is the first time we've had this conversation where we are at this stage in our lives with the way that we view the world today because we're always changing and evolving. And it's just a reminder to have compassion. Like, nobody knows this thing, everybody is doing life for the first time. And I don't
Mm,
think we give ourselves enough compassion, or we live in fear or in what we think is safety, which sometimes can actually be stagnation because of fear of what won't work out. And one of those things that I think people say that are well intentioned, I don't want you to get your hopes up. Yes, you do want me to get my hopes up
mm.
because I'm at least going to go explore this thing. And as I was told when I was nervous about leaving the nest, you can always come home.
Well, a lot of us can't do that, but
Well, and I don't literally mean like the
home,
physical
home.
home, but you can go back to what's familiar. So
Oh,
that comfort that you're not willing to sacrifice to go explore, to
yes, that's
that
gonna be
hope,
there. That's
right? So
true.
where you are is still going to be there. So why not go? And if it don't work, then I'll be back here with y'all. I'll tell y'all what happened and what didn't happen.
Look.
Or Imma run it again because you're gonna inevitably go out there and your life is going to change. You're gonna be exposed to things, to people, experiences where you can't go back and be the same. And I think that's the point. To
Mhm,
go do it, go see, go find out. And then you can come back and tell people if they want to come with you, let them come. If they choose to stay,
mhm.
let them stay, right? And it doesn't mean, oh, you forgot where you came from. Like those types of things that people say, oh, you too good for us now.
Mm,
That's usually for someone who has chosen to stay.
that is a
Never make
good
someone
point.
feel bad. Yeah, never make someone feel bad
Yeah.
for having hope and going and exploring it.
You know, I I have this quote that came to me. It's called, I hope that hope returns to you.
I like that a
And
lot.
I that came to me because I um was like leaving the club with friends like late at night at the underground in Atlanta. And I had just got some pizza. I was like, oh gosh, I want this pizza. It's gonna be so good.
Is it always pizza after a night out?
Look, you normally get wings. Like I'm a wing person. Give me
Okay.
wings, wings, wings. But this particular night was pizza. And I was like, oh, I can't wait. I'm gonna eat this pizza down. Leaving, so excited. And there was an unhoused man, black guy, and he was kinda like jovial and was like, "Hey, let me get a piece of that pizza." And I was like, "No, I'm so hungry. Like, what do you mean?" I was just like where my mind was. And then
Mhm.
like switch went off in him. And he was like, I'm homeless. Like, I'm asking because I'm hungry. And then I was like, I didn't think that's where we were. I just
Yeah.
wasn't thinking. And he was like, "Oh, you'll see. When God turns his back on you, you'll see." And I was
That's
like,
strong. That is strong language.
so it felt like a curse, in some.
Did you give the man the pizza?
No, I
Baby, I
didn't
would have
give
handed that pizza over instantly.
I didn't think about it. I was still just like, huh. And it stayed with me, right? That phrase has stayed with me for like several months. And, I would say that it sort of like echoed, I think, my own sort of family stuff where a lot of times people in my family are, traditionally physically beautiful and they're traditionally intelligent, and maybe not as like traditionally educated, but intelligent people.
Mhm.
And a lot of times there's this narrative around folks not reaching their potential, where I could have done this or I could have done that and just did not happening. So I think in a lot of ways, there's been this fear of that for me that I've carried, am I not going to reach my potential for some sort of random things? And so the way that he said that, resonated with me being like when things have like been hard for me, and when jobs haven't been working out or interviews and you're really thinking through like, how do I make a meal stretch? Like real scenarios. And, thankfully I haven't been to that degree,
Right.
where he is, but in some ways it feels like I've been close.
Right.
And so I think that stayed with me and made me realize that hope was gone from him
Mm.
and that it
Yeah,
has
he
been
basically
removed,
told you that he believed that God had turned his back on him.
which is about hope.
Mm.
And it's one of the things that I think is a lot stronger than we realize, and I think it became part of his identity, right? When you've tried, I think that's part of the thing of putting in effort, effort,
Yeah.
effort versus
Yeah.
necessarily strategy, right?
Yeah.
Or identifying patterns. And I think that sometimes life is just hard and things do not work out. But I think when you listen to those echoes and those whispers and try to identify those curses that have been in your life that hold you back from being who you really are,
Yeah.
know being able to identify the curses and then you can break them. And I think that was I think I have been, having this, everybody has like their own family trauma things that we can call curses. And
Mhm.
then I think he just kind of put a voice to what I think was already there.
Mhm.
And then it just I was able to hear it, see it, identify it, and be like, oh no, I'm gonna break this. Like this is definitely something I'm not gonna continue to have a hold on me. And the cracking the code of doing that is realizing it's hope and maintaining a sense of hope. If you have that, it can fuel you into taking those risks to try something new, taking those risks to not do what has been convenient for you and
Yeah.
continue to use that as fuel in your tank to get off the conveyor belt. find a motorcycle, find another vehicle, go
All
off-roading,
right.
and
Yes.
then explore the countryside, explore a new culture, explore a new landscape, and see all the beauty that's there. And a lot of it is a reflection of you. And I think that's been, I think, you know, the one of the most wonderful things that I've experienced that has helped me have like a new perspective on life.
Wow. So much depth. Like I said, I would have given up that pizza. I don't
Look,
want
if
no
I
bad juju. I don't want none of it. Okay.
okay.
But I love the message of hope, right? And so when you were just saying, if you just have hope, so my brain went to right faith the size of a mustard seed. And also, faith is the substance of things hoped for and the
Boom.
evidence of things not seen.
Mm.
And so, yeah, just even with that homeless man, what he said, we don't understand how, when we make up our mind, so if he's made up his mind that God has turned his back on him,
Mm.
that means he won't even be able to see any smoke signals that God is trying to show him, no,
Boom.
I'm with you or I'm taking you through this because I don't think people sometimes, and I know I was one of them, under internalized, I'll say, some of the like stories, the experiences of people, and again, it's not stories and it's not characters, right? These were people, if you're a Christian, right, and believe like in the Bible, all of these things that happen to people. One of those most obvious is like with Joseph and what happened with his brother selling him into slavery and being in the ditch and going to prison and doing all these things. But then God rose him up. Like God will take people from the lowest and rise, but you just gotta stay locked in, right? There's so many versions of this where people go through trials, but when you curse God or you turn away from God, then you feel it. King
Mm.
Nebuchadnezzar, you thought he wouldn't acknowledge God. That man lost his mind and was crazy like a wild animal until he acknowledged God. Then things were restored. So I would want to know more about that man's journey,
Yeah.
but also his belief, because are you going to be able to see and experience the wonder and the miracles and the things that God is
Yeah.
trying to do, or that he's not just punishing you? And I also recognize there are choices and there are consequences to choices, whether good or bad. But I would be curious to know more and what made him switch that fast.
Yeah, I wasn't ready for that, but I think
I
that,
definitely wouldn't have been.
I wasn't and I'm usually pretty quick, but for me, what you've just said, it made me think of, like, one of the reasons for me personally, I can maintain, a seeds of hope, there's many reasons, but one in particular is rediscovering my why. Like, I
Ooh,
think if you don't know what your why is, it's much easier to give up hope. It's much easier to interpret your environment, whether you are religious or spiritual or not, to then stop putting in effort, right? And I think when you don't have your why, because if your why was, I want a big house, I want to be respected in community, I want status, I want to be married, I want the house, I want the fence, I want the kids,
material.
I
It's
want
surface.
the baddies, I want, these different things that can be summed as like materialism. Then when you don't get those things, because there's a lot of reasons why they may or may not happen,
Hmm.
it's easier to lose hope. I think if you connect your why to, for me, my why is really like my chosen family. Because
Yeah.
if we have a limited amount of time on this earth, which we all do,
Yep.
I want to maximize it by having fun with the people I love and who have loved me. And I can't do that if I don't have resources. As much as I would love to not, like for me, like that's just how it is.
Hmm.
So that's my new motivation. So I'm not gonna give
Yeah.
up hope because I wanna not be a burden to them. Like, I wanna be a good anchor to them. Like, I want to facilitate new moments. I want us to get to the end and be like, "We had a great time." I want the last reel to be killer. Highlight,
Yeah.
highlight, 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 and I wanna be have shared that. And I think that that now became so clear to me, post. the box checking phases of my life, which is why I can now be like, "Oh, this person doesn't have a clear why. This person doesn't necessarily have hope. This person has misaligned.
Yep.
Their efforts and actions aren't really connected to anything." Their conversation is like, "When's my next trip?" Like, "When my Instagram trip?" or whatever, or a new luxury item. And to me, like, those things are all cool and they have their value, but for me personally, it's not aligned to my why.
Yeah, that's so good, Chris. And even you said if you don't get those, but what happens when you do get the things and you check the boxes? Now what? Right? So, like, oh my goodness, this just made me think of how, you ask some people, and of course, you'll hear this more, I think, in like hip hop communities when people are like, what's your favorite movie? And they're like, The Godfather and Scarface. And I'm like, y'all know they die at the end, right?
I
Like
love
dead
it.
presidents and, some of these movies that people love. I was like, they die or they go to prison.
Right.
So that's what you wanna do? So I pay attention now when people say what their favorite movies are. I'm gonna ask more questions because you're telling me, unconscious programming that's there, and
Look, this
I
is
do
this is
not
your
wanna be.
doctorate coming in. You
It is!
psychoanalyzing.
I'm telling you,
You
because
psychoanalyzing.
people will tell you who they are. All you
Yeah.
have to do is listen. And in that time that I spent alone this last time in 2024,
Mhm.
I still spend a lot of time alone, but it's okay. But just like in that quiet and like learning, I began to hear and see,
Mm.
like really hear and see. Not what I wanted to hear, not what I wanted to see, and me changing the meaning, but like really listen to people. People are telling you things about how they are. I won't say who because that's always evolving as long as you're open to it, unless you choose to stay the version of yourself. And so I think this is a good transition. How do you define the best version of yourself in scientific or strategic terms?
I think the best version of yourself is the person that you can go to sleep with and wake up with and feel at peace with.
Of
I
that.
think that's the best version of yourself. And I think then there's strategies to get there. And I think and
Mhm.
this is where my, training comes in. Health is numero uno. Like, how do you maintain health, right? Sleep is killer. Like, you have to get good rest. People don't necessarily understand why. The why is when you go to sleep, is when your body is literally refreshing, right? It's pushing literally biologically, getting rid of all the things. So people realize when you go to sleep, you actually wake up weighing less. You actually lose weight when you sleep because you are breath like so fat loss in particular is not through sweating. Sweating is a cooling mechanism. Is when you exhale. You exhale. So you exhaling is actually when you lose fat, when you burn fat. When you're asleep, he said 2 pounds. But no,
Yes.
like when you exhale, especially when you're sleeping, you are burning fat. That's why it's important to have your metabolism higher when you're going to sleep. You
Okay.
burn fat. So you're exhaling it through your breath. That's why cardio is also in a lot of ways important. And the other
Okay.
piece is prioritizing your health. Sleep, water. Water is so huge. Like, it allows your body to function better, and drinking, is like 3 or 4 the thing now is like, if you before 2 p.m., if you can drink like 3 or 4 bottles of water, like, you're
How
resting your
many
day.
ounce bottles?
So, you're like, "Let's get this down." But no, I think it's literally like 108 ounces, something like that, in total before like 2 p and that's for me, I still struggle to make it before 2 p.m.
I mean, honestly, that's a lot,
It's a
and the
lot of
number of
water,
trips to relieve yourself is gonna be a
but
lot
when you
higher
do it
until your
early in the
body adjusts.
day, it changes. Like, try it. Try it,
Okay,
Jamie. Like,
okay,
try it out. You will
we'll
have
do it
more
tomorrow.
energy. You will have more energy throughout your day. Your body will thank you. Like sleep, water, like these are, things to do in order to go to sleep, wake up with yourself and feel at peace. Your body has to feel its own alignment. It's hard to have
Yeah.
internal alignment if your physical body is out.
Come on.
So you gotta get that together, and then becomes easier to then do the internal alignment. You can do 5-minute stretches, right? You can take 5 minutes in the morning. You can do a cat cow, you can do a bird dog, you can do what you call they call it the world's greatest stretch. You can
I don't think I know
do
the world's greatest.
so it's like a lunge stretch with like one arm up, you kind of rotate. So like there's things
Oh,
you can do take 5 minutes. Do that, do a 5-minute night stretch. Like you start to do stuff for your body that grounds you and yourself, that's good for yourself, and you
yeah,
feel better, right? So to me, I'm just kind of giving other tips because these are strategic tips
right.
on how to get your body in alignment so you can take your internal self into alignment.
So good. And it makes me think of a metaphor that I often will use with clients about how we maintenance our vehicles more than we do our bodies.
Boom.
And even with our vehicles, sometimes those who don't, they don't go do the tune ups. The tire light is on, they're not putting air in there, they're doing all these things. And then they wonder on a day when they really need it, why it shuts down, why it breaks down. You didn't take care of it. And our bodies are the same way. You're absolutely right. Like what we put in is what we get out of it. And so, thank you for simple and practical reminders of just water and sleep. And some people don't want to do those things. They want to think it has to be this big magical step. And the reality is, it's those micro habits that are really going to sustain you, that free you up, because then your body is overworking when it hasn't had the rest. It doesn't have the water to carry out its other functions. So, it's taking energy from somewhere else and trying to do these things when all you had to do was drink water and mind your business.
Look, you said it.
Yeah, I'm like, y'all, life doesn't have to be as complicated. I think that
It
we've been
doesn't.
taught, I don't know how to say this, but there are just a lot of things that we've been taught or picked up, social contracts about who we are based on all these different aspects of identity
Mhm.
and what you do and don't get to do. And I think it's mindset that's also a part of that. When you think about best self, the mindset, and having to shed some of those mindsets that are limiting, and that it's okay to dream and believe. Like, have you ever had those experiences or witnessed when people kind of do well, who do you think you is? Who do
Yeah,
you
of
think you
course.
are?
Of course, yeah.
And it's like, you should be like, no, who do you think you are? And tell me more, because there's nothing like a audacious person, especially when it's, like, warranted, not the braggadocious, cocky, condescending person. And
No,
some people who haven't been taught, like, to be comfortable with, like, self-respect and being so basically, if you're not humble, you're cocky. And so if people see any sometimes version of that that's more than humble,
this
it's a
clocked as
problem.
arrogance,
Yes,
clocked as, the pretentious.
exactly.
But confidence and all those things they can be portrayed very similarly, but
Yeah.
the source is the difference.
Yeah, and a lot of times it's other people who have not had that freedom to explore. So they clock it, they recognize it. And I think sometimes people are upset that you're living in it and they're not. You've exposed them. They are exposed.
Yeah,
And so why do you have a problem with me just breathing?
because it invokes something in them personally, right? The only way people have a problem with you, you have to excite something emotional within them.
Mhm.
It's another data point. You're like,
Yep.
"I'm affecting your psyche. Interesting." And
And they'll say
so
you're the problem.
exactly, because they want to externalize the problem. A lot of
Yes.
people love to be the victim.
Yep.
They want to, everybody, whatever happens, it's not them, And I think to me, that's one of the key things I would look out for. I'm just like, if I'm going on a date or if I'm interacting with somebody, I'm like, so what do you feel like your role was in this? And then the
Yeah.
pivot just goes to being like the finger pointing. And then I'm just
And
like,
that's
we're not going to get along.
nope,
Because
we
I'm going to give
can't.
you lots of reasons to finger point. Let's be clear.
Wait a
So
minute.
if you think I'm the problem, I could be, but I'm going to need you to be grounded in yourself.
Not you out here triggering the people,
I mean, look,
but
but
it's
also I'm
different
going to
when
be
it's
real with you. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Like I'm going to keep it 1,000% with you. I'm going to own my own struggles, my own problems, because like, honestly, for me, it's linked to growth, like
Yes.
you said earlier. And I want to grow,
Yeah.
and this brings me back to a quote from Frederick Douglass. I love and hate this quote at the same time. He said, without struggle, there is no progress.
Progress.
I hate that quote because I was like, why can't I have progress without struggle? And honestly, the most progress I have had in my life has all come from struggle. And
Yep.
I'm like, damn, he knew what he was talking about. But I don't, as much as I can, reduce any struggle, I'm gonna try. But
Absolutely.
it's so true.
Yeah.
It's so true. And I think when you own your struggle, then you can be connected to authenticity. Without owning your struggle, you can't be authentic.
And you don't know until you know. And then it's just like there's an awakening that happens. And you're different. People see it. They feel it. It shows on you. It comes through you. It's just like it oozes out of you all of a sudden. And I think it's kind of a thing that people could always see. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Rise and Thrive with Dr. J. Nicole. Please come back this Thursday for part 2 of this dynamic episode with Dr. Christopher Cross. You're not going to want to miss this.